Hadn't added myself to the stream. Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday already. Thursday? That can't be right. But I think it's right. I think it's Thursday. And yesterday was a bit of a crazy day here in America, for those of you that are here in America. But we don't really do politics on here, so we won't spend a lot of time talking about that, other than say that I'm glad that everybody, for the most part, is safe. I know one person passed away yesterday in all the demonstrations, but I'm glad to see that for the most part, outside of one person, no one was hurt or harmed, because it's a crazy time we live in. I'm ready to reboot 2021 already. Anyway, yesterday we spent some time hooking up our voices to what's going on inside our Alexa skill. Good morning, Major Lift. Good morning, Jan Blank. You are not first, but you were close. Major Lift beat you by just a few seconds. But yeah, here we are on January 7th, 2021. We're already asking ourselves, what is going on? So with our Alexa skill, yesterday we made some good progress. We were able to jump in. We were able to get Alexa saying some things in the appropriate voice. One of the things we spent some time on was building some code so that every time we create some speech, we don't have to worry about voices or speed or anything like that, but our application will automatically change the voice for us based on some stuff we're doing in a response interceptor. So go back and watch yesterday's if you missed that, because it's kind of cool how it's handled. And today, what I wanted to do was at least start capturing my users so that we have a user record, because this is going to be an important part of everything that we do. So we should, when the user shows up in our application, when they use it for the first time, we should create a record for them. And then future times, we should continue to use that record instead of creating a new record for them every time. But there's also a few other places, I think, where we could be better about thinking about our speech and our content that's coming out of this Alexa skill for this trivia game. So I think the right thing to do is probably just to dive in. I want to do some user management stuff this morning, and then we'll also go back and we'll touch on additional speech. So I can flip over to this view for us, and you can see that I have my database here in front of me. What we worked on yesterday, if you look at speech here, is that we added some welcome messages to our code. And what Alexa does when you come into the skill for the first time is you say, open Jeff's Trivia Game. This will eventually be TKO Trivia, but I have a bunch of other skills that use that invocation name. So just so I don't have to spend the time to go through those and change them or modify them, we can just say, open Jeff's Trivia Game, and then it says, this is TKO Trivia. Now, the reason it said that is because of this one right here. It had grabbed this one randomly. But I can also set these to be disabled. So if I decide that I really don't like this one anymore and I want to remove it from circulation, I built a mechanism in so that I can just check this box, and automatically every time that the system tries to go find content, it will only pull ones that are not marked as disabled. So it's a nice way to give yourself a safeguard without having to like delete records or modify some code or anything. It's a good way to make sure as I have this giant pile of content that's going to continue to grow and grow, that it's easy for me to pull things if I decide that it's not working or it's not one that I want to use anymore. All right, so there's three things really. I feel like it would be nice to have like a whiteboard right here. Like I could write down like, all right, we're going to work on this and this and this. I do have plans. I know you guys have seen this sign here behind me. I had aspirations that I was actually going to like update this every day, but it just doesn't happen. It takes a long time to write things on those. So I think what I'm going to do is take that down and I'm going to put a monitor there, like a vertically oriented monitor. And then on that monitor, I'll be able to control it from this machine, I think, and just have like a checklist of things that I want to do today. I've also considered, maybe how do we find a way to put that stuff on screen so we could do something like that right here. I lose a lot of screen real estate when I do that. So we'll have to think about exactly what that means or how that works. But I thought it would be kind of cool to have a little checklist maybe here under my video box, where we could kind of see what the plan is for the day. Because I generally have a plan when I get in here. It's hard to sit down and write code if you don't have a plan. Good morning, Zach, man. Good morning, QU. Catul wants a balance. Didn't spell it right, but wants a balance. Is it still running? Oh, it is still running. Cool. I have that still running locally in a node instance on my laptop. I really need to just deploy that so it's always here. But I haven't done that. So it's still running on my machine. I can see the terminal window over there. It looks like everything's working well. W. Giorgio, good morning. I saw you had a stream late last night. I didn't jump on, but sometimes I tune in and lurk. But I did not get in last night. I hope you did some cool things last night on your stream. There's something else that I wanted to mention to all of you because I think this will be kind of cool. Let me grab this URL and drop it here. There's this website called Digital Assistant Academy, and they do all sorts of various free. They have a podcast. They have all sorts of stuff. I don't know a lot about the organization, but I did see some advertisements for this Digital Assistants Throwdown that they're going to be doing as a monthly series on YouTube. And the idea is they're basically benchmarking different voice assistants. Let me see if I can find the original post for this. It seems to be gone. See if I back up, if I can find it. Yeah, there we go. We'll just bring this down here. So you can see that they basically talk to each of the assistants and evaluate and analyze how they respond. So in this example, Alexa, why are you so dumb? Alexa, stop. I want to know what went wrong. If you would give feedback, it's like a very kind of neutral thing, and they point that out. Siri says, hey, that's not nice. And Google says, I think I'm pretty smart, kind of contradicting the user. And so they're going to do these kinds of things, these kinds of experiments where they talk to the assistant and see how they respond and what they say, and then have a discussion about things like ethics and bot abuse and all sorts of other topics. So things like privacy, negation, turn taking, all that kind of stuff I think is kind of interesting. So let me drop this in the chat, which I can do right here. They're free events. It says buy tickets, but they're free events. It's monthly, just a live broadcast on YouTube, but I think you have to register to have access. And so I recommend registering and checking it out. I registered for the first 4. It's once a month. So I'm registered through April just to see what they're like. And if they're good and interesting, like I think they're going to be, then I'll register for the rest of them. Anyway, I thought that was something you guys might enjoy. Okay, so another thing that I noticed today is that I have 101 repositories on GitHub. As I just tweeted a few minutes ago, that means that I have 101 projects I haven't finished because there are so many, like for me, so many amazing motivated ideas that I have in here. There's a lot of TKO stuff that I've played with in the past. But as we look at my master list of repositories, can we just see more? Like, let's go way back time. We can talk about a couple of the awesome projects that I have. Let's get pre-Alexa. Yeah, some of these are pretty old. All my presentation materials from CES 2017, some skill samples. This was a C# app that I built for Windows 8 and Windows Phone called King Poker. This was a project that stemmed out of a bowling game kata that I had gone through to really think about how you score a bowling game. That's another Windows Phone app Windows mobile app. This was a game that I worked with a game creator. It's a game called 5x5, but we were basically building this kind of cool game that relied on 5-sided dice, which if you haven't seen a 5-sided die, it's kind of cool. All sorts of awesome stuff in here. If I go back far enough, Tic-Tac-Tough. If you guys have ever played Ultimate Tic-Tac-Toe, I have so many like cool games that I've worked on. There was one I was specifically looking. Oh yeah, Fanatic. This was a Windows phone app that I started building, but it was basically the concept behind it was an app for sports fans. So you can keep track of all the games you've seen and attended and stuff like that, pictures of your tickets. But also it has a really interactive mode while you're in the stadium. So there's so many cool projects that I've started working on and just never finished. I fear that Chatsino is ultimately going to be that. I have full intentions to go back and work on it, but it just takes so much time. Like I get that I'm really good at the first 80% of a project. It's that last 20% of refining and debugging and publishing that I tend to struggle on. So anyway, this is the data that we have for our speech right now. I can uncheck that box. And what I want to do is first like kind of log my users. Now I've done this a bunch in other skills, so we're going to lean on some of the stuff that I've already done. So if I come into, let's see, we are in the Chatsino. This certainly should have that stuff. And as we look at our Lambda and we look at the index, I would think that right down here in my response interceptor, I would have some kind of cool function. Oh, Mr. Smoofy, good morning. P. Karthik is here. Did I switch to a Windows system? I didn't really switch. I mean, I am using Windows, but I have a streaming PC here, and it was replaced in early December. It's a beast of a machine, and I always found that I was fighting and battling a lot with getting my Mac to run through a capture card to do all this stuff, and I realized, like, I have all this stuff just sitting here. Why not just work on this machine? Do I have a different mic? Does the mic sound bad? No, I have the same mic today that I always have. But please let me know if it seems off. Let's see. Let's look at my microphone. Oh my gosh, it switched my microphone on. There we go. That should be better. That's crazy. I can't believe that it overrid my my default microphone. There we go. Thank you, Karthik, for that bit of feedback. That's so much better. So I have a webcam mounted up above me here, and it had chosen that one instead. Wow, that's crazy. Anyway, we've talked a little bit about. I have a different camera up there now, so you can see the overhead cam now looks like this. Well, kind of. No, that's not the overhead cam. Let's see if we go to this and then this. There we go. Yeah, the overhead cam is not even properly functioning right now. So I have some work to do to get all of that stuff back to the right place. But I am angling towards doing this baseball card thing. Man, I hope I could do it next Friday night. I think that's my plan, is to do it next Friday night, maybe like 8:30, 9 p.m. Eastern. And the cards are on their way to me. I just saw the shipping label. I think it should be delivered on the 9th, which is Saturday. So I think tomorrow I'm going to start scheduling the eBay auctions for all the teams, and we'll see what comes of this. But I've got some creative, I've got some artwork to do, I've got graphics that I've got to do for the eBay listings. But I'm incredibly excited. What graphics card do I have? I have the 3070. Let's see if we can find that. I just threw my box away. Where would I find that? Micro Center? No, I don't want microcenter.com. I want to go to my email. I want to look for Micro Center. I think I have the receipt in there just to make sure I have your receipt. I have this one. Let's go to a browser you can actually see. I have this guy. This is the 3070 thing. So I don't know how much you guys geek out over this stuff. Like I don't know a lot about it. I just know this seemed like it was getting the job done. And this machine is so crazy fast, and the graphics are incredible in the games that I've played so far. So hopefully that answers your question there, W. Giorgio. NVIDIA Broadcast can help with mic and video. That's very cool. Yeah, it's a pretty good card, and I was actually very lucky. I know that they're really hard to come by anymore. Any of the 30 series are, but I went in Micro Center and I said, I want one of these. Can somebody here pull one aside for me? I'm trying to do this whole build, but I'm not going to start on the build until I have the video card. That's the hard thing to come by. And the guy said, yeah. I think we're actually supposed to get a truck in later today. So as soon as, do I have a lot of background noise, W. Giorgio? I feel like I'm in a silent room anymore when I listen to the recording. So let me know. If I have a lot of background noise, that would be cool to know. Oh, okay. Anyway, so I went in and I asked the guy, can you just pull one aside for me? And I went home. It's about a 25-minute drive from Micro Center to my house. It's on the other side of Columbus. And as I pulled into my driveway, the guy called me. He goes, hey, they just unloaded the truck. I have one for you. And I was like, oh my gosh. He goes, but I can't really hold it for a long time, so I need you to come right back. So I drove 25 minutes there, talked to him, drove 25 minutes home, only to find out that he had the card for me. So I drove 25 minutes again to go place my entire order and get everything set up. And for $100, they build the whole thing. And then 6 hours later, they had the machine ready for me. And so I drove 25 minutes there and back again to pick up the machine later that night, which was pretty awesome. And I am in love with it. I've never ever had a computer where you can walk up to it and it's in standby mode and you click the mouse and it's ready. Like it's off. There's no fan spinning. There's nothing moving on the machine. It has more or less gone to sleep. You tap the mouse button. It's ready. It's amazing. And I hope that I feel this way about it 2-3 years from now, but who knows? I'm sure I'll find ways to slow it down and ruin it. That feeling when you speak in such a low pitch that the card removes your voice. Oh my gosh. Mr. Smoofy, you don't have a Micro Center? Do you have a Fry's? Is Fry's in Florida? Because Fry's is my favorite store for this kind of stuff, but we don't have Fry's in Ohio. No Fry's either. What is your go-to hardware, like computer hardware store? There has to be something. It's not Best Buy. There has to be somebody. I don't remember. Mr. Smoofy, did you say you're near Orlando? I don't remember where in Florida you said what city you're near. That seems odd to me. Yeah, everybody's sold out of the new cards right now. You're near Tampa. Mr. Smoofy, I have a very good friend. His name is Andrew Maxey. He moved to Tampa about 4 or 5 years ago. And just a quick side story. Obviously, I travel a lot normally for work. And I needed one more trip that had to be over 1,500 miles in order to hit diamond status at the end of 2019. And so I booked a flight to Tampa, went and visited my friend Andrew, and spent the day there. Got to drive through Scientology land and went to the beach and hung out there for a little bit. But it was like early December, so we didn't get in the water or anything. But it was pretty cool, man. I liked it down there. It was, I mean, except for the Scientology stuff, that was a little weird. But the rest of it was very, very cool to visit down there in the middle of December and be walking on the beach in shorts. So yeah, I like Tampa, and I'm very tempted. The Browns are playing. The Browns played in Tampa this year, and I was very tempted to go, but I feel like there's an opportunity for them to also play there next year. I don't remember. Let's see. And I think the Indians will probably make a trip there as well. If we do Cleveland Browns 2021 schedule. And then we'll get to some coding here. The opponents are set. They're playing New England. So it's New England, Green Bay, Kansas City, Los Angeles, Minnesota. Those are the away games. And my friends and I try to go to one away game a year. This year, obviously, was an exception. But the plan for us this year was to go to, I think Tampa was on our list. Another place was Seattle. I think we considered, no, maybe we didn't play Seattle this year. There was someplace kind of far out. We went to Denver in 2019. We'd love to go to Green Bay, but the tickets are just so expensive to try to go there. So I think we're leaning towards Kansas City or LA. I think those are probably the two. We've been to Minnesota. We went there for an Indian series. Do we have let's see, 2021 Cleveland Indians. I don't know if they have this published yet. Baseball doesn't really know what they're doing yet. Let's see. They know that. Do we know first half? Oh, we do know. Well, that's great. Where's Tampa Bay? They have to play them at some point. Tampa Bay. Oh, the fourth, like the beginning of the week. That's too bad. That's probably not a trip I could make. Is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right after the 4th of July. Although maybe I could justify that. What would be a cool trip is to go to Houston for a 4-day series over the 4th of July weekend. But I always have a big blowout party here for the 4th of July. Again, not in 2020 because of COVID, but generally we have 100 people in our backyard. Tampa Bay is also, well, this is the at Tampa Bay series. This is the home Tampa Bay series. I don't really want to do that. I want to go to Tampa Bay. That's probably all they play them, though. All right, so I need to start looking at this, too, because we got to figure out if we're going to travel for an away series, when would we go? It's probably going to have to be like after July, I would guess, because of COVID and vaccines and stuff. So that gives me Tampa Bay is certainly a possibility. Oakland, Houston, Chicago, Toronto would be cool. Toronto over a weekend, it's not. See, like we got people working. Can't go on weekdays. Been to Detroit, been to Minnesota. Kansas City's during the week. Boston would be cool. I've never been. I've been near Fenway. I've watched games from rooftops outside of Fenway, but I haven't been in Fenway. Hey, I haven't been in. No, I have been in Fenway. I did sit there once. Also, I've been to Wrigley. The Yankees are a weekend series. That might be cool too. And it's late enough in the year that, anyway, I'm just thinking this through for myself. But anyway, let's see. What's unfortunate? Yeah, I remember, Karthik. Man, we were all supposed to meet in Seattle. It was going to be a great trip. And that was right when the world shut down, right at the beginning of March. Yeah, Mr. Smoofy, I agree. I've flown into Clearwater every time I come in. So I think that's a very good tip. Okay, let's do some stuff. Let's do some coding. So this is what we did yesterday. Just to give an illustration of how this works, this is how a lot of our handlers are going to work. There will be more logic in some of them because we'll have to make decisions and things like that. But ultimately, for my launch request, what I need is the speech that we're going to say, and then I need to return a JSON response, and that's what this thing does. So what this does is calls out to my database, gets random speech of type welcome, and then make sure that we're getting a welcome from the specific locale. So I'll just add this to the database, but it won't get used. But if I come back here to this, we might say another welcome might be, let's do FRFR. We might say bonjour. If I could spell. So I'm just saying bonjour. I just want to show that that's in there. But what the way the system is designed to work automatically is that if this uses the user's locale. So if they are a French speaker and I only have this one FRFR value, then this is what it's going to say every time. So what this really gives me is the ability to write a whole bunch of English responses. And then I could have someone that is a French speaker, native French speaker, or at least fluent French speaker, come in and write versions of these in French. And then all they'd have to do is tag them as French. This is one of the reasons that I really like Airtable, is because it gives me the ability to hand this off to other people in a familiar format, and they don't have to be technical. They don't have to know how to dive into a database. This is like using a spreadsheet. And so it makes it very easy for them to be able to come in and translate and add all of this other information. So that is my plan ultimately. Now, this value won't get used. And if somebody comes in using French, this will be the thing they hear every single time because I don't have additional ones. So that's something we're going to have to grow. And before we would publish to another locale, we would want to make sure that we have done this properly. Okay, so those are our welcome messages. That is what's happening here in my code. So I'm saying, get me welcome messages from this specific locale, whatever the user's locale is. And then we're just getting a random one. And so I have a function that basically just gets the subset that we're wanting, which is not disabled, meets the specific speech type criteria, and meets the specific locale criteria. It grabs those three things down, brings back just that subset of data, and then it randomly selects one of those inside my application. So that's how launch request works. That's how we get that data out of there. But what I want to do next is take a look at inside my request log. This is for the Chatsino version, but you can see in here that what I'm doing is I'm checking to see who the user is. And I have this long reference to the user's user ID. This is the randomized anonymous user ID that Alexa provides for me. So when we're in the application here, you can see that I have a user ID right here. Every time the user talks to my application, if they've never used it before, they get a new one. And once they've used it, it will be the same user ID every single time. So it's a reliable, unique identifier, even though you don't necessarily know anything about your user. So what this means is that I can rely on this value over and over and over. And so it's session user user ID. And if you look at the code that I've written here, it's session user user ID. So what we want to do is call out to our database and find a record for that user. And if they don't have a record, then we want to create a record for that user so that we can continue to refer to them over and over and allow them to answer questions and do all the other stuff. So Karthik wants me to hydrate. I don't have any water here, but I broke a rule this morning. I did one of these. It was already a crazy, stressful, sleepy morning, and I decided that I needed some focus. So if you see me a little more energized, maybe I'm talking a little faster than I normally do, that's your answer. But I do need some water. I think I have a bottle over here. Here we go. Cheers. Thank you, Karthik. All right. So what I'm doing here is calling out to session attributes. Well, I don't even really need that yet, but what I'm going to do here is create a new function that is get user by user ID. And oh man, Chris, I can't wait until you get all the LEDs in your place. I have plans for more. I didn't show these yesterday, but I have these are Christmas lights. They are these vertical sticks, and they're rainbow colored LEDs that kind of like the color runs down them. My intention with this, I haven't figured out where yet. I'm running out of real estate. Oh, maybe we could do it like underneath this. That might be pretty cool. Yeah, that could work. Just like hang them, space them out a little bit, but hang them vertically right here. Oh, that might actually be pretty sweet. I haven't made much use of that wall yet. But yeah, you gotta get all the LEDs in your house, man. I want my room. This room, as far as my son is concerned, is the coolest room on earth. I have a beefy gaming PC and like Twitch studio. I have all the LEDs. I have another setup of computer. I have all my baseball cards. I have toys all over the wall. Like this is an awesome place for a 12-year-old boy. That's for sure. Yeah, these IKEA shelves are sweet. I actually wish that I had done this differently. You can see right here, I have two shelf brackets next to each other. I had only put up the one set of shelves originally, and then I decided I needed more space, so I added a second set. But what I should have done is bought the connector piece where it's just one piece and then the two pieces fit together. But it's too late now. That's just how it looks, and I think it looks fine. But I wish I had kind of cleaned that up. I also have, you can't really see them, but this is all IKEA as well. This piece that holds all the Alexa devices. It's a like pyramid shaped cabinet. There's two of them shoved together, and then they have all these kinds of drawers stuffed in them. So yeah. So let's see. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So let's see. Can you ask the team that works on the developer web portal to add a way to add custom tasks via the web portal? Yeah, I think that's a very valid question. Let me take a note on that because I don't want this to be lost. It is my opinion, Q311. So let's. I'm just jumping into my email here. I'm going to send myself a message. Maybe that didn't copy. Let's try copying it again. And then I want to talk about what Chris is saying about his house. I used to have the lax shelves without brackets. Yeah, I think these are pretty cool. I don't even remember what they're called. And Q311, Karthik makes a really good point. It is excellent feedback. You should do that by going to alexa.design/contact us and submitting a form. You'll actually get a ticket. You can talk with the folks that handle that system. I think that's a good way to go. So Chris Demars needs a house first, working on it. My office right now is an apartment living room. Yeah, man, I hear you. That's a tough jump from the apartment to the house. And I would be very curious to know, I know you're back in Detroit after a short stint in Denver. Are you, like, I am sure it's not still the case, but there was a time 8-10 years ago where you could buy like an entire city block in downtown Detroit for like 10 grand, 10, 15 houses at a time. I don't think that's probably still true, but where are you looking to live? Are you looking to find like an actual house downtown, or are you looking like Southfield or something further out? What's your plan? You seem like a downtown guy to me, so wonder what you're doing there. I used to come to Detroit all the time because Microsoft had a big office in Southfield, and so we would always go downtown for cool stuff. All right, so let's get back to doing this user stuff. So you can see that I have this function, get user by user ID. This works really well for me. The point of this function is to call out to the database, find a record, and if it doesn't find a record, then create a record in the database, and then return that instead. So let's go look at that function. So we have to go to Chatsino. Oh, nice. Oakland or Macomb County. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm not always sold on the big ass house, but I am sold on the like big garage, big yard. I think I've mentioned this briefly before, but my buddy just got COVID, or we would have probably already pulled the trigger on this. We're looking to co-buy, like to split a purchase on like 120 acres. And we want to put a big, have you guys heard of the term barn dominium? So you're right. 0 lines of code since you started today. Saw LED graphics cards and talked about houses, though. Dr. Scarf, you're right, man. Sometimes we get distracted. Sometimes that's just how it goes. So I hope you're at least enjoying LEDs, graphics cards, and houses, but we'll get to the code here in just a second. Kind of. If we talk about barn dominium, images, something like this. Right, where you've got like a huge garage, kind of shop floor kind of thing, and then there's a house attached to it, a residence that might have like 6 bedrooms, and then like a big open kitchen, or the kitchen might even be part of the big garage. But this is a new style of people building stuff. Is basically a small house attached to a really large shop, stuff like this, right? Where they have like a couple of small like apartment rooms up here, but then just like a big open space where a lot of it is shop floor. Like imagine having tools and woodworking or whatever, but there's also like a living room and whatever. So they're pretty affordable to build, and I'm pretty excited about that. All right. No, but we're not talking about big bedrooms, or it's not really even meant to be a house. We're thinking that this is like a place that my buddy and I and our families can go and hang out and get away and whatever. Anyway, yeah. And the other thought is that we'll probably Airbnb it from time to time too. All right, I got to actually write some code. Dr. Scarf called me out, and now I want to get to doing. So we want Chatsino, we want data, and we want to look at get user by user ID, which is this one. And so you can see that what's happening in here, kind of, is we're calling out to Airtable, and we're trying to find a record that has the user ID, the Alexa user ID. That's true, but I like coding. That's why I'm here, is to get some stuff built. And so then what happens in here? So we call out. We say, hey, did we get a record? And we make that call, and then we say, if records.length is nothing, then we're actually going to return a different function. We're going to make a second call to the database to Oh, you guys can't see. I'm going to make a second call to the database, where I'm actually going to create a new user record using that user record ID. So that is this is more or less the plan. Now I'm going to go through and clean this up, but let's just take this and go into our code, because what we need to do in let's close some of these files too. Okay, so what we want to do right now is in our request interceptor, this is where we're going to do our stuff. So I'm going to just drop all this here, because I don't actually want this to do anything. I just want to have it for reference. Okay, so first things first, we need some references. So we'll grab these and uncomment those. Cool. So I think all of these references are good. Do I have Air? I don't know if I have our Airtable yet. Get out of my way, mouse. Make sure we have Airtable installed, and so if we check our package just to make sure Airtable is chilling in there, and it is, that's great. Okay, so since we have Airtable, we have node fetch, and now we have our keys, and this is actually referring, oh, it's never read, that's great. We are in interceptors, and at the root of this directory is keys. So that is a good reference. Lambda, yeah, okay, that's good. So we have our references. We can get rid of this. So the next thing that we want to do is, well, actually, I don't even really need this stuff here. We're going to do this in a separate place. Oh, awesome, Coach Bear. Welcome back. How long have I been using Airtable? How do you like it for your purposes? I will tell you that I am absolutely in love with Airtable. And there's a number of reasons for it. But one of the keys, I'm getting distracted again. You guys ask me awesome questions, and then I want to talk. Let's jump into Lambda data, and what we want to do here is let's data. Want a new file called get user by user ID. Yes. So I'm trying to keep all of my interactions with the database in one separate place. So those are going to go there. Then we're going to have a function. Oh, excuse me. Oh, man. Okay. So this is going to be an async, definitely async function. Major Lift, there's two reasons really that I love Airtable, and I'll show you them in a minute. Get user by user ID. And in here, we're going to pass in the user ID. And then down here, we need to do a module.exports, and we're going to do get user by user ID. So that's all good. We also need to add it to the index. So get const get user by user ID equals require by user ID. Oh, stop that. Get user by user ID. Okay. Take that. Oh, this right here. And that is good. So we have our function. It doesn't do anything yet, but we have it. And then the other pieces of this are, I probably just need to say something like const user ID is wait. That means this needs to be an async function. Await. And we're going to say data dot. No, do I not have? Don't have data in here. So let's do that. Great. And then this is going to become data dot get user by user ID. And this is where we're going to pass in the getting of the user ID. Now I'm still trying to follow some of the patterns we introduced early, which is things like I have this helper to get the locale, to get the polyvoice, to get a random item. Like these are all like little helper functions. But what I'm trying to do is keep it so that I'm not spreading the knowledge of what's going on inside the handler input all over the application, but instead I'm keeping it just in one place. So what we're going to do here in get user by user, well, no, in the request interceptor, is instead of just doing handler input ... we're going to call const helper and here we're going to say, this doesn't even exist yet, helper.get user ID. I'll have to pass this handler input in. Okay. So that means that in our helper, we need a new file called get user ID. And now we need a function. Get user ID. And this is taking handler input every time. Okay. So then module.exports equals get user ID. Great. And then this thing, get user ID, const get user ID equals require get user ID. And the last step is here. Okay. So that has a get user ID function now for my request interceptor. So now this should actually do a thing. And now we need to actually have it get the user ID. So the way to do that is somewhere in here. I've had all that code down here. So the user ID, do I need to jump over here? If we look at the response interceptor, which is in here, the user ID is this. There we go. So what we're going to do in ours, and we learn every time we build something, we learn. And so what I should be able to just do is say return this. And we'll even do some of these. Be safe. So if these don't exist, it'll return undefined, but it won't blow up for me. Okay, so now what I'm saying is I want you to get user by user ID using this user ID. And we have the user ID that we need. So now what we need to do is actually call out to the database and do that thing. So in order to do that, we need the rest of this functionality that we have written way up here, get user by user ID. So the first piece is this, and this is how I'm going to show you why I like their API. But let's take this piece for now first. We'll drop it in here, and we'll do some formatting. So that comes up like so. Okay. And then I have my full path, and so let's back this up. You guys all need to cooperate here. Okay. What I have now is a long URL. This is pulling in from keys. My database ID, also my API key. Those things are pulled in automatically. I have a table called user. That's the place that I want to pull them from. And so we should verify that that's what we did. I created a table called user, so that's good. And then I'm going to have some information in here. We should probably have, we'll just call it single line text. But we'll call this Alexa user ID. I already hate that. But we're going to do it anyway. So this is where I'm going to store the Alexa user ID for my user. We'll have additional information. We'll have many more fields applying to our users, but we're not there yet. We're not ready for that yet. So what this does is it says, go out to the database user, to the table user, and what I want you to do is find me any records that have an Alexa user ID that matches this user ID. There should only ever be one. There should never be more than one. So I want you to get me all of the records for that specific user ID. That's what that URL will get for me. I have some options here, and then as you saw below, now we're going to call fetch. I'm going to format this up a little bit just so it looks nicer. But every time I go through this, every time I try and work on something like this, I find something new that I like, or a different way to approach the problem. And let's do that, and this, and that, and that. Like so. Okay. So in here, I can probably get rid of this. And this, what I'm saying is call this URL. So you can see I have URL and options. So I'm telling fetch to use this URL and those options to get the data that I want. And then if you don't get anything back, if there aren't any records, then we're going to create a new user record. And if they do, then we're going to, what we want to do is return. I don't need to update the score. What I need to do is just return the user. So I think I just want to return r.record0. That function that I'm using for the casino game, every time that you use the skill, which means we hit this every time we come back in. Every time that you use the skill, I was incrementing your count by 1, which is an additional call to the database to make sure that I'm actually giving you 1 extra credit each time that you do it. So in this case, all I want to do is return the first record of our database. Otherwise, I want to create one. And if I create one, then I'll be returning that as well. So that's the last step that we need in here, is to get that create user record function. Didn't mean to open that. Okay, so in here, I have this create user record function also. And this is where the API comes in handy, because they actually wrote this all for me. And I probably should, just to give Major Lift a look at this. Let's take a quick pause over there. Airtable.com. This is where you see all of your stuff, right? So this, I'm logged in already, but this is where I see all of the databases that I've created. But if you go to api.airtable.com, this is the REST API, and this is where you can find all their documentation. Now, what's awesome about this, and the reason that I love their API, is because it's done in the context of my stuff. So the API can return multiple, but you write a specific query that will only return 1 or none, so you'd be good to go. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So if we look at my data table here, you can see that so if we look at this side, if I look at data, you can see I have speech, speech type, language, country, locale, and user. If you look at this, when I clicked in here, I have speech, speech type, language, country, locale, and user. And so if I look at the user table, all of their documentation is written in the context of my thing. So you can see here, if I want to retrieve a record, let's do a single record. They give me the curl to do this, but they also give me the JavaScript. And so right here, I can see I could take this code, drop it into my application, and it would work. I love this. It shows me exactly what the output would be. It shows me exactly how it's working and what it's doing. And this is true for updating and deleting and retrieving and creating. So retrieving a record is a little bit different. Retrieve a record is this one. So this is how I would get a record back. And you can see that your API key is filled in here. But if you look at this context, new Airtable API key and base, if you look at my code, this is taken right out of there, which is this piece. New Airtable API key base. And I'm just passing in my values that I've stored in a database. So the API is absolutely incredible. The one last thing that I wish they would let me do here is to actually like run this code or run a sample and build some queries out. Because one of the things that I struggle with, especially with listing records, is that I'm using their API to do all of this stuff, or their SDK really. And I don't love this for selection. It doesn't work as well, and they make me do paging and a bunch of other stuff that I don't love. But what I can do, I think they have a reference to it in here somewhere. At least they used to. No. Fields. User table, no. Formula. This takes me to their formula field reference, which is great. But what's actually really useful, which I don't think they have a reference to anymore. CodePen. No, I don't want all the URL. I just want CodePen Airtable. and it's this. I don't know if they built this or not. I think maybe they did. But what this allows me to do is come in here and type some things in. And what it does is it builds the URL for me that I can make my queries against. Here's your base ID. Here's your table name. I can come in and say, I want 10 records. And I can see exactly what the stuff should be. If I want to sort things, I can say, oh, I want to sort it by date created, ascending. And this CodePen builds that URL out for me. And then I just take this URL and I drop it right into my code. And that's where this came from. That's how I created this URL. Chris, take care, man. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you tomorrow. Show up a couple minutes early and we can chat and get things all ready. But I'll be talking with Salt and Burnham 313 tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Okay, deep breaths. So we have this create user record function and we need to create that. So here it is. Let's take the whole thing and come back into our application. We have our function here, but we need another one. This one's not one we're going to return. It's only used inside here, but we're going to create a new user record. So I'm creating an object that has an Alexa user ID. They don't have a balance. They just have their user ID for now. I don't know that I'm going to need anything else necessarily for Major Lift. Here is the best part of all of this news for Airtable. If I go back to their website, go to help and look at plans and pricing, you get all this for free. 1,200 records per base, 2 gigs of storage, revision history, lots of other views. These are automations. This isn't like the number of calls you can make or anything. The things that you miss out on by not paying for it are not stuff that I need unless I'm working on a team. So I get everything I just showed you for free. All of that stuff, the API, the coding, building multiple tables. I am not currently paying for any of my Airtables, and they're all working fine. They're all great. So yes, you can do all of this in Airtable for basically free. If I get more than 1,200 users, sure. Now there's some issues, but I want to show you. If you look at my tables, there are some that have this little warning on it. Like let's look at something that's like a chat bot. This chat table currently has 13,245 records in it. They haven't shut it down. They haven't stopped it working. If I come in here, I think this is still part of the Chatsino, maybe? No, the last time I ran this bot and had this stuff fill in was October 12th. But if we go back, let's find Chatsino and look at this data and look at, oh, am I not saving that anymore? I thought there was a point where I was doing that. But Chatsino is another great example. If we look at Bet, no? Ledger? Ledger has 11,000 records in it. And this includes, if I go all the way to the bottom, 710. Do I have these sorted wrong? One 7/20/21. So this is still recording all of the issues that all the gambling that you guys have done even today. So they don't just shut it down when you get to 1,200 records. I'm sure there will be a point where I get a phone call like, dude, you've got a bunch of these databases that are over, and if you want to keep them, you need to pay. But they haven't done that yet. I'm not using any of these. I would shut these down if they made me pay for them. So I'm limping along on this, but even 1,200 records is a great way to get started. And honestly, QU301, if I have 1,200 users, I should be able to monetize that in some way, enough to make it worth my while. So this is why I like Airtable. There's a lot of fantastic database solutions out there, right? You can use things like Dynamo or SQL Server if you want to get really heavy about it. They all work really, really well. But the reason that I like this and Major Lift, the reason that I tend to stick with Airtable is, especially in voice, it's very rarely a one-person project. I can write all the code, I can create the database, but when it comes to writing all the content for the skill, 10, 15 different ways to say each thing, and then across multiple languages, I'm going to have collaborators. And if I'm going to have collaborators, man, is this an easy interface. Imagine having a DynamoDB database set up for this. and you're working with someone that's a creative, right? They're not technical. And you say, hey, I need you to go add a bunch of records to this database. What are you going to do? Are you going to build them an interface to do that? Are you going to teach them how to use Dynamo? Because it's not nearly as intuitive and it's not nearly as easy to grant access. I mean, here I can click share. I can send an invite to somebody for the entire workspace or just one database. It just makes everything easier. So there's a lot of reasons specifically for my purposes that I love Airtable. I think there are better database solutions for other purposes, but it gives me that kind of relational feel where if we go back to the database that I'm actually working on down here, we look at data. Like I'm creating speech records, but they're of type speech type, right? Like this is a lookup table for that. I have locale, and it has lookups for countries and languages. It makes it all really nice and relational, which allows me to run analytics and do all sorts of other stuff, especially with things like my user, where I want to be able to know what's going on with them and see like how many users do I have doing a certain thing, right? It allows me to group things and join things by having these relationships. Anyway, that's my story on Airtable. I love it for those purposes. So we have create user record. I have some indentation issues here. Why do I have indented? Oh, because everything's just indented too far. Got it. So let's fix that. This goes here. That goes there. This backs up. This backs up. And then we return a new promise, and then this bumps out, and this goes like that. Resolve. This goes here. Why do I have too many? Let's see. I mean, it doesn't say that I have too many, but it feels like there's too many. So I have an open paren and an open bracket here, and I have one closing there. I have an open paren and an open bracket here. So this needs to go here. That's exactly why this needs to go there. Okay. Okay, so what this does is, again, using my API key and my database, I want to insert this record, which has an Alexa user ID of user ID, the thing that we passed in a long, long time ago. So this create user record will go through this. I'm returning whatever I get as a result, which will just be the one record, because it returns the record to me once it's been created. And I think we're ready to go. I think we're ready to go. So what we should see when I run this skill is that I have a new record in the database with my user ID. Seems like a reasonable assumption, right? So let's see if it actually all works. If we go back to the request interceptor, we are saying, give me the user ID of this user. I actually want more than that. This is going to be const user, because it's going to bring me back the entire user record. And then I'm going to jam that into my session attributes. But first things first, I want to see that I'm actually getting my user. We can also get rid of all this. Okay, much cleaner file. So let's do it. So if I do a little local debugging, there we go. And let's go over here to my test console, and we'll refresh this. And we say open just trivia game. Probably an error, but hopefully not.
Welcome to TKO Trivia.
Whoa. So we look at our data. Fingers crossed. Oh, yes. Look at that. I have an Alexa user ID that's been inserted for this user. And so what we want to check is to make sure that this is using the same user ID each time. So let's do a little interesting stuff. We could do a console log on user, and we'll see what we get. So this time, when I do it, go back to this, we'll refresh. It should be giving me a user ID that ends in BQJ. I know, Major Lift. I'm sorry. I'm getting better at this. Actually, I'm just using code that I've written before, so I have more confidence in it. But don't worry, we'll get some errors. I promise. There's no shortage of errors in my code. Do this again.
This is TKO Trivia, a trivia game with 20 different categories that will knock you out.
So this time, I'm in the wrong one. We should be able to see my user ID ends in BQJ. So I'm pulling my database record back. And I have everything here that I need. So what I really want to do, if we look at how we did it in the Chatsino, if we come back to index, index is in here. We get our user, and then we session attributes user to our record. So I think I really want to do the same thing. That's kind of what I'm anticipating here. So we just need to say session attributes dot user equals user, and we can get rid of this. So that assigns my user record. Now I will have all of the database record for that user in my session attributes. This means that I now, on each instance of interacting with this user, know exactly what's going on with them, know exactly their full context. So I know what question they're on. I know which questions they've answered and which ones they haven't. Like I'm pulling back my whole user record. There's obviously not much in it yet. If we look at our database, right, all I know is that they have a user record ID, but we're going to add more fields as we continue to build this out. And anything that is in this record, all of that stuff will be brought back, and I will have all of that available to me every time that I'm interacting with my user. So I can even see like, oh, it seems like you really like science questions, or you're really good at science questions. Like I'll have all that data. Whew. Okay, so we're making good progress. We have our user stuff working. What else was I doing? I saw this, this is error. I don't think I really care about that. And then this other stuff here. If session is new, we were checking for things like streaks and saving sessions. Oh, in the Chatsino, I keep track of individual sessions, because you could have a session on Twitch, you could have a session on Alexa, you could have a session on Slack, or wherever the chatbot was running. And so I wanted to see where you were having sessions, like where you were playing and how long you played and how many times you played. I'm not ready for all this other stuff yet, because I also have an achievement engine that runs behind the scenes, and we'll have achievements in this trivia game as well. But that's future features for now. Right now, I just want to make sure that I'm building a manageable user system, and then we can tack on things like streaks and achievements and stuff like that. Okay, so I feel pretty good about that. We now have user management, and we pull that data in. So in fact, let's check this just to make sure that it does in fact do what I want. Is Achievements Engine a skill connector? I don't think I know what you mean by that question. Basically, I have built, if we look at the Airtable stuff for the chat scene for the casino, I can show you what I did there. It's here somewhere. This one. I have an achievement table. Works a lot like speech, but I basically have these individual achievement codes, unique codes. And then I have something that I'm going to say to the user when they do that. No, it's not. It's unfortunately not exposed to other skills. I thought that might be where you're heading. But it's things like, hey, you played your first game of video poker in the casino. And then I just keep track of when the user did it. So like, hey, user achievement, you did it on this date. This is also where I'm tracking those sessions that I mentioned. And as we look at user achievement here, achievement, you can see that I have dozens and dozens, well, probably a couple hundred. I have 210 achievements right now that were just base things based on individual parts of the game. And then I give you bonus coins, depending on what those are. This, as I looked at it, instantly became a content nightmare, though, because you can see I have 210 records. I would like to say each of these things a couple of different ways. So let's say I say three different ways for each one. That's now 630 different responses. And then that's 630 different responses per language. Man, that's a lot of content just to award achievements. This is why I say, like, doing this with other people makes things a lot easier when you have people that are passionate about making sure the speech is good, and I can worry about making sure the code is good, and the design and everything. I feel good about the design, but sometimes writing all of this content and the speech for this can be a lot. Okay, so if we look at this, we run it, we should see some session attributes now.
Welcome to TKO Trivia, the trivia game show where you answer difficult questions. This is the help intent.
Yeah. So check this out. In my session attributes, I already had these: previous reprompt and previous speak. But now I also have my user record. And so inside this user record, I know their database record ID, which is super handy. I know their Alexa user ID, which I don't really need much. And all of the other things that I create about this user will also be found in this fields object. So this is where all of the other things that I need to know about my user will live. Whew. All right, that was a good adventure. We're an hour and 5 into this, and as I can't remember his name now, Dr. Scarf mentioned earlier, I didn't start writing a lot of code until whatever his message was. I can't see timestamps. Anyway, that's that. So that piece is working. We now have user management. I need to think about what other things I'm going to have in here, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So we'll get to user records. We'll get to adding additional things to this field. I'd love to know, like, the user's name so that we could ask those things and they could provide it to me. I'm really gun shy on names, though, because it's such a broad slot value. There's so many different possible names that it tends to have a lot of gravity, speech gravity. That's my own term, but it has a lot of speech gravity in that when it's not sure where else to send it, it will send it to the voice change intent or the name change intent. And then before you know it, you've got somebody's name changed to something that isn't really there. Q311, I agree with you. It would be really nice if I could use this across skills to be like a skill connector service. The problem that I have here is the Alexa user ID is different per skill. So even though I built 5 different skills, when the user comes into each one of those, even if it's the same user, they're going to have a different Alexa user ID. So I don't actually know that they're the same person. W. Giorgio likes the name generator from Amazon Game On. Oh, that's pretty cool. Maybe I'll have to take a look at that. Are you giving them their own, like, kind of random names, or do they get to pick them? I haven't actually used it. I started playing with Game On, like, at launch, and I haven't gone back to it. That's true, but you wouldn't have to write the code over and over. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I tend to use this over and over, and I'm trying to get this to be more modular so that I can just plug and play a lot of these pieces. They're just given random names. That's pretty cool. That would be pretty awesome. But I feel like I would love for users to have their own username, and then obviously leaderboards and that kind of stuff become important, website kind of stuff, because people want to see how they're doing and how they compare and whatever. And the way that this trivia game works, there's 20 different categories of questions. So those 20 categories, we could have a master leaderboard, but we could also have one for each category. So who's like the most knowledgeable or the most successful in each category. The problem with trivia games, where this is different, for the casino. The casino is based on luck, and you can't really replay a game in the casino. You just play a different game of poker or a different slot spin. But with trivia questions, I don't really want you to be able to re-answer one. So the idea would be that each time you hear a question, that's the last time you hear that question. And we'll have to work through a lot of that stuff. And if we go look at my old iteration of trivia, if we have to go way back a bit, TKO here, if we go to data, you can see I have a pretty large database of questions. I have almost 450 questions in here with questions and answers, and they're all assigned to categories. This stuff is going to move over almost verbatim, I think. But there's a lot of, with this kind of content, this is content that I'm going to show and speak to the user. You end up with these complications, which are, I need a different version for when I speak it versus when I put it on the screen versus when I put it in a card, because they have different delimiters and different formatting. A good example of that is Calvin and Hobbes right here. When I say it, I want to say Calvin and Hobbes. Alexa doesn't love ampersands. So that means for the card answer, though, I want it to look like it has an ampersand. So I have to have two different versions of this content for this specific question. And then I also want to have synonyms so that as people say things that are close or accurate, like they said, the answer is Norman Rockwell, I want them to be able to just say Rockwell and still get the answer correct. So I have to have synonyms. We're going to do a bunch of stuff with dynamic entities to make all this stuff work. And then I also want to have, after they get the question right or wrong, I want to tell them why they're right or wrong. I want to be able to show images on the screen. That's what these images are. And then I want to assign questions to specific events so that there's like a daily event of 10 questions. And that's the first time you'll ever hear the question. So after that, it'll be added to the catalog. And if you maybe didn't play that daily event, then you'd still be eligible to answer that question as just random trivia questions. But there's a lot of rules that are going to be applied to this as well. You can see I started to do achievements here, answering 5 questions, answering 10 questions. I didn't take that very far. This is I think where I ended up landing, which is a bunch of different category achievements for getting a certain number of questions in each category correct. So I'm going to move a lot of this stuff over. We have individual events. You can see that the last time that I was working on this and creating events was like November 2019. So we've had well over a year since I've really worked on this concept. And I've learned a lot since then. Major lift. If it can't be repeated, then can a family all answer from the same Alexa, or would it need to be a different device? So this is tricky because there's also a speaker ID sometimes. I don't think that I have it right here. No, but what if I say switch accounts?
There was a problem communicating with the requested.
I don't know if I can do this on here or not. Let's see. Switch accounts.
Now in Sarah Blankenberg's account.
So this is my wife's account. This is all part of my Alexa stuff, but I wonder if I can say this now. I don't even know if she has access to this.
Okay, here's quiz time.
See, she doesn't even have access to this skill.
I'm having trouble accessing your quiz time skill right now.
So we'll get out of that. We'll switch accounts again.
Now in Jeff's account.
But what should happen is that there is also, in addition to having a user ID, so let's do this. I can show you that user ID again. Did I stop?
This is TKO Trivia.
There we go. So I have this user ID, but if it's a different speaker, if I've actually set up like the voice ID stuff inside my Alexa account, then it can say, oh, this is a different speaker. This is a different speaker. And then they could not only switch speakers, but even if it's on my account, if it hears a different voice, then there is a second property that comes through that is speaker ID. I wonder if there's, I don't have a way to test this because it's my voice, but I will, here, let's just go look at this. What I want is the docs for this. Alexa, okay, Alexa developer. Nope, that's not what I want. Show me some JSON. Maybe it's just a permission I have to add. Let's try that. Let's see if we can explore this a little bit. Let's go to a build tab and just see if I look at tools, permissions. There we go. Let's turn that on. Do I have to save? I don't think I even have to save. No. Okay. So if we go back to custom, this is another cool thing I can do with the CLI here is let's stop debugging for a second. Go to the Alexa Skills Toolkit, Skill Manifest, download. What this does is gets me that thing, but now I have this person ID read permission added to my skill JSON. So I can make the changes in the dev portal, and then I just come in here and click that button, and boom, it brings it down for me. So I have, although this is not correct. Maybe it was correct. I feel like, let's make sure I get this right, because I haven't published this since I made some changes. So the Lambda ask TKO Trivia default. I don't feel like that's right. I thought we just called it TKO Trivia. Let's try fixing that. I'm deploying, which means I'm overwriting the change that I just thought I made in this skill JSON. Oh no, the permission's there. Well, this might break. Well, we'll see. Who knows? But I think by turning this on, Major Lift, that one permission that I just changed, I think this will give me a speaker ID every time. And then realistically, I should probably use the speaker ID as my identifier, not the user ID. Because the user ID is the owner of the account. The speaker ID is who it hears right now. The piece that I don't know, and I feel like I should know, is there a time when I turn on this speaker ID stuff where there wouldn't be one provided? Or is it always going to be available? Skill manif. No, I don't really want that. What I want to see is like a master JSON document to show me what that stuff might look like. Right, you're totally right, Major Lift. So that would also allow me to then have like a group. So that the user ID then becomes like my group ID, and the speaker ID is the individual speakers. You could even do a game show where you could say, oh, you know, Johnny won that question because I heard their voice answer the question first. But then we start talking about using things like Alexa gadgets and buttons. You could do, I don't know if I have any buttons over here. I have them somewhere. But like you can actually have people ring in with their buzzer and assign those buttons to the individual users, and then it's like a game show. I don't know that I'm going there on phase 1 of this, but that's all very doable. Very, very doable. Let's see what I broke. Okay, so I think I need to fix this. So the ARN for the IAM role needs to be this. So the IAM needs to be that. Function needs to be TKO Trivia. Great. But that means that this function should also be TKO Trivia. Let's try that again. I think I have 6 or 8 buttons in this house. The thing that annoys me is that you kind of, when you start the game, you have to like repair and reassign the buttons every time. And I don't love that. I don't love it at all. So revision ID, go away. Last deploy hash, go away. One more time. I feel like I just did this. Didn't we just do this yesterday where we updated the CLI? I mean, I love that they're making changes all the time, but see if this actually works this time. The buttons aren't even supported anymore. I thought Alexa gadgets were still support it. Maybe I mean, it's been a little while. Maybe they don't work anymore. That could be. That's too bad too, because I thought the buzz in idea and the buttons all changed colors. They were kind of fun. Ooh, I have a spam risk phone call. Let's see who it is. Hello? Hello? Ooh, guys, the factory warranty on my vehicle is running out. Don't know if you've ever gotten that phone call, but okay. So now I think we're good. We have our, if you look at skill JSON, I have this person ID. So let's see how that changes things. So let's set up my local debugging again, get that rolling. Cool. Let's go to this, refresh. Well, I don't even need to refresh. We could just do help.
This is the help intent.
And let's see what we get now. I don't see anything new. Let's see if maybe it happens only when I speak to the device. Let's try talking to a device instead. Alexa, open Jeff's trivia game.
Welcome to TKO Trivia.
Well, now I can't see the thing.
Welcome to TKO Trivia.
That's the reprompt. I haven't assigned the voice to the reprompt yet.
There was a problem communicating with the requested skill.
Alexa, stop. So I guess we could go to CloudWatch and see what happened there. No, can't go. No, don't go to CloudWatch. We're doing local debugging. It's here. So never mind the error. Skill request came in. Previous speak user. This is so much harder to read. Let's just take that in here. There's a way. There's a way to format this, but I can't remember what keystroke it is. Person ID right here. System dot. I wish I could see this more clearly. Well, now that we know it's called person ID, let's see if we can find that. Designers build test. Alexa interface reference. I want the this is the event. I don't want any of that. I want the there we go. Request and response JSON. Okay, so system.person.person ID. We can use that. What concerns me is that when I do it here, it doesn't show up. If there's ever a time that it doesn't show up, it feels unreliable.
Welcome to TKO Trivia.
System. See, there's no person in here. That doesn't work for me if it's not there all the time. How do I want to handle that? I mean, there is a lot of merit, as Major Lift mentioned, to be able to let multiple people play in the house, but on their own accounts. I mean, switching accounts is realistically the way to do that. So you're using your own account, but we all know that doesn't happen, especially with kids. They're just going to talk to the device. So I wonder how I could do that. I mean, I could build like some conditional that says use person ID. If it doesn't exist, use user ID. That just feels unreliable. What I think I should do is just leave it as I have it for now, and then I should ask some hard questions of the product team to say how can I use this if it's not there all the time. Startup wants to know if there's a visual object model. Not really. I mean, the closest you're going to get is this, but to actually like show these pieces broken out in like a visual way, other than through code, no, I'm not aware of one. I mean, I'm sure there are tools that can visualize JSON, but there's nothing like Alexa specific that will do that for you. Okay, so let's go into here. There's a thing I need to fix because it's going to bug me. So skill.json is good. I don't need this file. Don't save. I'm going to go to my request interceptor, and we're just going to leave ourselves a little note here. That is system.person ID is the speaker identifier. Okay, so I've just left myself a little note in there to remind me that, like, hey, by the way, that's probably the thing we should work on. No, Major Lift, these are the kinds of questions, like as you and I were talking earlier this morning, all of you, don't ever feel like you can't ask me a question or like that I'm some crazy knowledgeable expert, that I'm doing it the way it should be done. I'm exploring this just as much as all of you are. In many ways, I feel like the college professor that's just reading the book a few days before the students do, and then teaching it to all of them. The reason I'm here, the reason I'm doing this stuff is for me to stay fresh and knowledgeable and experienced. And there's a lot of aspects of Alexa development that I don't have a ton of experience with. I know about them. I know where to find the answers. I know that it exists, but I've never done it. Like this person ID, I knew it existed, but I'd never actually used it before. So this is a really good question and a good path to head down. What I need to know is, does this exist all the time? Because the interface that I'm using right now, the dev console, well, there isn't a speaker. So how could we provide a speaker ID? Every time anyone actually uses my skill, they're going to be using their voice. And so, oh, you know what else might be interesting? Because this is a consumer-facing feature. Let's look at this. This is another cool thing I don't know if you guys knew about. Let's scroll down the bottom. And I'm going to go into the Alexa app. Have you guys seen this? I don't know if I've really talked about this on stream. But inside, so I'm opening the Alexa app. Here, let's go to this view. I'm inside the Alexa app, and I've got my normal setup of stuff, right? Popular skills, whatever. But up here at the very top corner, you can see that there's actually a keyboard icon. So this keyboard icon allows me to type as a user to Alexa. Well, I just said the name. But let's say open Jeff's trivia game. So I've just typed that into the box. And I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so it worked. You can see that welcome to TKO Trivia, the trivia game show where you answer difficult questions and win nothing. So it has responded to me. What I want to see is if in this specific instance, person ID is in there, and I don't see it. I actually want to do it again. Okay, so I'm actually seeing this stuff move. User system. Man, this feels like a real problem to me. Like I need to talk to the team. They should just include it. Just assume it's the default user if it's not. Yeah, I think the typing interface is actually really nice. Let's try this again. Open Jeff's trivia game. I have my volume up and I have the speaker on. I mean, it's working just fine, but I'm not getting a speaker ID, which I guess makes sense. But man, this is broken, because then how do I know who the user is? So let's talk through this logic for a minute, because this is interesting. I have a user ID. My application works with it just fine. If I have four people in my house, 4 speakers, and I use their person ID as their unique identifier, then when they speak to the device, it seems like the person ID comes through. But in the times where they would use the mobile app to type to a skill, I don't have a person ID that comes through. So I would almost have to default back. It's almost like I would have a default family account. That's gonna annoy them. If I were the user, I would want it to always know who I am. Yeah, I've got to ask this question today. So let me send myself another email. Compose. I got lots of emails to go through today. Person ID. When I want to make sure I write this well for myself. When typing to the mobile app, I don't seem to get a person ID. This makes it unreliable. How do we use this when users are typing to our skill in the line at the grocery store, for example? Okay. Send. Okay, that is in my inbox now. Lots of things to go to. Good time to have a wireless multi-device keyboard. Well, the way I have this set up, it feels like multi-device, but this is actually just one device doing everything. I have not really shown you guys this, and I don't have a great way to do. Do I have a great way to do so? Yeah, I guess I can do this. Maybe. So if we go to this overhead cam, you guys can see that like this is the keyboard and mouse and setup that I'm using. And then this is my main screen. You can see I've got like a gigantic curved screen here in front of me. This is the code. This is what I'm actually working on. This is the screen that I share with all of you. Then behind it is the microphone and the camera and a speaker so that I can hear what's coming out of the computer. And then over there, I have a completely, like on a mobile arm, you can see this thing like moves around and can swing and pivot and whatever. But that is where I'm monitoring everything. So I can see what's actually being shown on screen, manage my, like right here, I'm managing like all my microphones and stuff. This is the chat. So this is what's going on with chat for you guys, but it's all one device. This is just multi-monitor setup. But yeah, this is how I work. This is the stuff that's sitting here. I have my phone right there. Nice table. And then as we're talking about pops, you can see like up above that shelf there, they go those are ones you haven't even seen before. I have this whole shelf above me, kind of goes like that, all the way above me. You don't see any of those on camera. But yeah, no shortage of geekiness. You can see the keyboard even like it's constantly changing colors. The mouse pad has an LED around the edge with rainbow lights going all the time. Yeah, I mean this is seriously geeky stuff. And then tons of wires all up in there, right? So that's enough of that nonsense. Someone said, is that the Battlestar Galactica DVD set? I have that. No, I don't think I own a single Battlestar Galactica anything in my life. Where did you see that? Missing Pixels. I like your name, Missy. Thanks for joining. Oh, Startup asks, what is that cool mouse? Let's see if I can find it. It is. Let's see if I can find that for you. I bought this at Micro Center too, but is it Glorious? Yeah, this guy right here. That's the guy. That's what I'm using. Here, let's do this. Text, copy, drop it in the chat. There you go. This is the mouse that I'm using. I don't think I paid $65 for it though. Probably 50. But you can see it's got all the RGBs, and yeah, this is the one that I have. Super lightweight. I like it. Anyway, that's my mouse. What's the Model O minus? Oh man. I don't know what the difference is, but that seems more extreme than what I have. Anyway, that's my mouse. Oh, you guys can't. Oh my gosh. So sorry. That's the mouse. This is the mouse that I have. I have the Model O, not the O minus. But it looks like that. It's got one of those nice like fabric cables too. Startup definitely saw some Microsoft books. Yeah, there's no shortage of old .NET Microsoft books. I even have one here. I'll grab it. Maybe I'll grab it. Where did it go? Check this out. If we go to camera, migrating to Windows Phone. Like I got some really timely books that are really still useful. But check out the authors on this book. Pretty awesome, right? So I wrote this quite a while ago, and I wrote a good majority of this book. But it was a bunch of cool examples and like how to think about building your stuff for Windows Phone when that was a thing. I have grand aspirations to do the same for Alexa. At some point, I haven't gotten there yet, but I think there's going to be a point at which I write an Alexa development book. We'll see. I've had conversations with O'Reilly and a couple of other publishers about the idea, but the timeline just didn't work out. So there's still time and opportunity, but I just haven't gotten around to it. So I think 2021 might be the year that I buckle down and write another book because I really enjoy it. I love putting together, and I've got so much sample code and stuff that I could use to do a lot of these things. So I think it's probably time. With some prodding, I'm sure you guys could convince me to do it sooner than later. Okay, back to that. We are at 11:36. We discovered some things about people ID, person ID that we're going to have to figure out. Oh, thank you, Startup. Much appreciated. Let's see. This can go away. That's doing its thing. Great. This is working, and we have our user. So I think the next thing that I wanted to do is we could just add some more. We have a little bit of time left. We could think about some of our other handlers. So let's look at these here. We have like the help intent. Again, we just have this is the help intent. So help is something that's very complex, at least in most of my systems, because it's very context sensitive. So I'm going to leave that one off for now. But I have, Jeff, you broke something, and we're logging out whatever our error is. But I think this needs to change. So let's open up our launch request handler, because this is the one we did yesterday. And we bring in data and helper. And we'll look at error. Data and helper. And so speak output here is going to equal something I'm going to get out of the database. So we're going to do it just like we did with this one. The difference is that this time we want error to be our thing. We want an error message. $367 on the Amazon.in website. Wow. Oh, Greg, I didn't know you were here, man. Thank you for hanging out. Greg hasn't been involved with the book since he was the technical editor on Marketing Online for Dummies in 1997. Wow. That's cool. Yeah, I feel like I've got enough experience and knowledge that it might be interesting to write a book. There haven't been a lot of Alexa development books written. Where, I mean, there are like generic voice design books and stuff out there, but I feel like this is an opportunity. So, by the way, don't ever write a book if you're writing a book to get rich. That's not why you write a book. If you make any money at all, it's a fantastic thing. But it's tech books especially are not a terribly profitable venture, especially if you look at the hours you spend versus the money you make. I think I made less than minimum wage on that other one. All right, so we have error, but now we need to actually add this to our speech types. Yeah, they're completely for reputation. I agree with you, Greg. They're to reinforce the reputation that I'm trying to present. I think is probably the right way to say that. So we have welcome and we have error now. And these need to be in another order because it's going to bug me. Okay, error is there. We're calling out to the database type error, which also means then that we need to get into our data and look at our speech types, and we need to add one that is error. And so in speech then, if we look at our old one, speech. No, we're in the wrong place. TKO trivia. Did I? Error. Yeah, I have a couple of messages here. Okay, we'll just take those, copy them into my new database, and we're going to put them right here. Boom. Okay, stretch this out a little bit. Something is definitely very broken. If only I could fix it myself. Sorry for the inconvenience. I've notified our developers. Let's start over. What would you like to do now? It appears our trivia questions are better than our programmers. Something just broke. I'm so sorry about that. You could start a quiz or ask for a question. What should I do? It looks like one of our programmers broke something. I will let them know and have them fix it as soon as possible. In the meantime, you can ask for a random question. All right. So these are going to be error messages. And they're going to be NUS. Cool. So I have some error messages now. So if we look at my skill, I don't have a great way to trigger an error message, which I guess is good. But I have the ability to get random speech for this thing now. So let's try breaking something. Let's how do we want to do this? My wife is at Costco asking me if she has the right cheese crackers for me. I recommend marrying somebody awesome. Can't recommend that enough. She's amazing. Okay, so get random speech for my error works very well. I'm so excited that Greg's here. It's so good to see you, man. Okay, so this works, but I don't have a great way to try it. How can I do this in a way? The all cheese crackers. Yeah, they're. Let's see if I can find the name. So no, let's talk about those because they're amazing. These guys. Oh my God, they're so good. Now they're not. I guess they're not entirely cheese, but they're like majority cheese. But they do have, if you look at the actual ingredient list, they do have a little bit of rice in them and oat bran. So you can see that there are some carbs in them. I'm not a carb chaser. What I'm trying to do is stay away from products that have a lot of flour or sugar in them. And you can see that it does have flour. You can see rice flour is right here. But it's far enough down in the list. My system, the system I'm working on, is it can't be in the top 3 ingredients. That's been the rule the whole time. And so to have rice flour is a very rare thing is fine. The same goes for the the rice and bran. But they're absolutely fantastic. Really like these crackers, and they're something crunchy to eat. I've tried a bunch of other stuff, and they haven't been the same, and they're definitely a little spicy too. Not super spicy, but a little bit. All right, so let's find another one that we can actually test. Stop. We can do this one. This is good. Oh, I realized that the error handler needs an async also. Okay. The starch in bag shredded cheese, man, that's hardcore, Greg. I like it though. But you've got something like related to diabetes or something, like pre-diabetic or something like that. Isn't that part of the reason that you stay away from some of that stuff? Managing insulin, or I could be totally wrong on this, but I feel like that's something we talked about. What if the error is that you can't contact Airtable? Well, I suppose that would be a thing I could test. What I was going to do is build a thing that has an error in it. So like, let's do const infinity equals 0 divided by 0. So I added that to my stop intent. So that should break. That should definitely get me to my error message. So let's try this and see if we succeed. Got it, right. So you're insulin dependent if you don't avoid starches. That's life or death stuff. That makes total sense to me. I just am trying to be less fat. And so if I have some grains here or there, it doesn't harm me in any way. It just makes me want to eat more. So let's say stop.
There was a problem communicating with the requested skill.
Did I crash out the whole thing? I wasn't intending to do that. Yeah, I crashed. Well, do I have, if I look at my index, I have an error handler. The error handler is here. Skill request comes in. Skill response failure. Error is not defined. I've never seen this message before. This is relatively new to me, that one. I don't know what it means. Unable to retrieve source content. This feels like maybe it's an error in the CLI. I don't know. I meant to do this earlier too. Let's update our Ask CLI. I don't think that's going to change anything here, but I just meant to do it. Well, I didn't get the response that I was hoping for. And I don't even think that I saw like error handled or anything. Like this should have been hit. If we're hitting an error message, let's talk this through. Let's talk this through. Index. I have an error handler. This stuff should be getting written out. If we hit that, and then we get into handlers.errorhandler, and this should write the error that was handled. But I'm not seeing any of that in here, which feels weird to me. And I'm sure I'm being a little aggressive on this error, but maybe that's a less damaging error. I don't know. We'll see. Sometimes it seems like it blows everything up, and other times it seems like it just throws the error like I expect it to. So let's fire this back up and see what we get. Open Jeff's trivia game.
Welcome to TKO Trivia, the trivia game show where you answer difficult questions and win nothing.
Stop.
There was a problem communicating with the requested skill.
Okay, so I'm seeing error handled. And then it says error is not defined. I don't know what that means. Oh, that's why. Okay. So this is something that I broke. Error handler passes handler input and error, but then I'm not passing it. And then in here, I'm not receiving it. So then I can't get to the stack. So we were layering errors on top of each other, which is why it says error is not defined. Makes total sense. This is not a clear error, but it's good. We figured it out. All right, so let's go back to this and open Jeff's trivia game.
This is TKO Trivia. If you thought Jeopardy was challenging, you're in for a treat.
And we say stop, we should get an error message. Maybe.
There was a problem communicating with the requested skill.
What? That's a lot. Okay, error is still not defined. Well, I think you're lying to me now. Okay, so let's go back here. If I look at an error handler, so we'll say Alexa error handler. Maybe I'm doing this wrong. Don't really care about any of that. This isn't really what I want. No, it's like smart home stuff. So a handler input for an error handler, I thought, took two properties. When you use the, do I need this as one word? Man, I hate this. Okay, that's great. We see the error handler on the page, but what I want to do is see error response events. Nope, this is not what I want. Yeah, see, those are all separate, like, what I need is the, let's go to the ask FTK Node.js docs. And in here, I want to find the processing request. Yeah, see, it has a handler input and an error. That's what I was expecting. So I'm doing this right. It's handler input and error. So when I look at wrong one. When I look at my this, handler input and error. If we just refresh, maybe that's the issue. This feels like I'm doing this right. Open Jeff's trivia game.
This is TKO.
Stop.
There was a problem communicating with the
So
requested
weird.
skill.
Oh, cannot read property SSML of undefined. That's new. In the response interceptor. That's why would I get that error? Oh, I know why. Speak output is not defined. That I would expect to get that because I did that on purpose. Speak output is not defined. So that should throw an error. I'm getting my error handled now. I think I just refreshed it. Okay. But it's still saying, yeah, see, I passed this right here. It's very broken. I wish I could fix it myself. Is this not returning it properly? Const speak output. Yeah, that's on purpose, QU311. Thank you for finding it. I was trying to create an error so that my error handler would hit. And that was doing that. So stop intent also really won't have a reprompt. But the error handler did its thing. It just didn't pass its message back through. Well, let's not worry about that for a second. We'll come back to that one. Let's work on this, which is getting the goodbyes. I have a whole long list of goodbyes I want to include. So if I look at error handler here, we're just going to take this line, stop intent. This is going to be a goodbye. That is now my stop intent. Oh, too many semicolons too. Okay, so that means error handler has too many also. All right, stop intent, calling for goodbyes. There's a couple of changes we need to make here. First is we need the speech type, data, speech types. Okay. And then in our database, we need speech type I. Great. And then we need some goodbyes. And I have, I think I have a bunch of those. Yeah. Let's just take all of these. Copy. Enter here. We'll just say paste. And then these are all going to be goodbye. They're all going to be NUS. Okay. So I now just added like 100 more ways to say goodbye to my skill, I think. So as we look at stop intent, it's getting a goodbye and it's responding and then exiting. That should work. I think that should work. Take care, Greg. I'll see you in a bit. So it's time for me to wrap things up too. Okay, open Jeff's trivia game. Do it. Do it.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Oh boy. What did we break? Await. Oh, there you go. Async. Oh, that's a great question, Q311. This is from Bespoken. Tools. Unit, is it under unit testing? I never remember where they hide this. Solutions, maybe it's under. Now I have to find it. Tools. I don't think it's test robot. No, that's their bigger thing. Unit testing. can't remember. It's kind of hidden in here somewhere. Anyway, what is it called? It's a browser plugin extension. Oh, it's from Jovo. That's why I had the wrong one. So here, let me give you this Chrome extension. It's just a Chrome extension that's added to the browser, and then it is paying attention to and recognizing. I don't know why I thought it was bespoken. It's Jovo. It's just a simple browser extension, and so when you have commands in here, like if I say open Jeff's trivia game, hopefully it'll work this time.
This is TKO Trivia. A trivia game with 20 different categories that will knock you out.
So it does a couple of things. It gives me the ability to replay something, so it adds this repost button, which basically just runs the command again. But then if I say something like help,
this is the help intent.
You can see it gives me this plus sign. And so if I click the plus sign, it just adds it to this list up here. Now, they're not movable, draggable, any of that. It's a very simple interface. But now, anytime I want to say help, I can just click this help button. It does the same thing.
This is the help intent.
It's just submitting that phrase for me, but it's a way to save a lot of my commands. But it's just a browser extension that's added to the dev console. And it remembers it per skill, too, because the skill ID is in the URL. So if I go back out and I look at this one, I guess, and go to test, you can see that it remembers all the things that I use for that specific skill. So all of that is happening behind the scenes automatically. It's really, really nice. And you don't have to log in or anything like that. It's just running locally in your browser. So it's persisting this stuff just here locally. It's not a cloud-based anything. Anyway, I love it. I think it's cool. Actually, it may be cloud-based. Maybe it's syncing it, but I don't remember having to log in or anything, but it's this guy right here. So with that, I think we have to wrap things up. We got back to a working state. I wanted to hear a goodbye. Let's do that. So let's go back to my skill and TKO Trivia and test and open the game.
This is TKO Trivia.
Stop.
Move out. Russell's Sprout.
And there we go. It said one of my goodbyes and then it exited the skill. So if I say help now, it shouldn't work.
For help,
Yeah.
please visit the help pages
Awesome.
on the Amazon
So
website.
we have a content engine running. The next step, not tomorrow, because we're going to interview Chris DeMars here on tomorrow, but on Monday, we'll come back and we'll start building the engine to ask and answer questions. That's a major lift. Thank you for your name. But what we're going to be doing is building a system that allows you to generate questions for the user. But in order to know that they got the question right, we're going to have to work with dynamic entities, which is kind of a cool thing to play with. So we'll toy with that here a little bit later on Monday. So thank you guys all so much. Great to have you here. Let's go raid somebody as I get out of here. See who's up to getting some raids. C# Fritz today. All right, cool. These guys have 100 people watching, 150 people watching. I don't know what I'm doing wrong or what I'm doing right or whatever. I love having you all here, but I just don't understand how they're getting 100, 150 people. All right, let's do it. Raid now.
Blankenberg raided my stream with 10 views.
Thank you so much. Jeff Blankenberg's our friend with the